May 19th, 1536, a French swordsman raises his blade as Anne Boleyn kneels on Tower Green, but just 3 years earlier, she was the most powerful woman in England. How did the Queen, who broke a 1,000-year-old church, end up losing her head to the very man who'd torn apart Christendom to marry her? In just 1,000 days, Anne Boleyn rose from nobody to Queen of England, then fell faster than anyone thought possible. This is the story of obsession, betrayal, and a death that changed history forever. But it all started with a single, forbidden glance. "I will have no other mistress but you." Henry VIII's words would destroy everything, including the woman he claimed to love. When Anne Boleyn returned from the French court in 1522, she was different, sophisticated, dangerous. While other English ladies giggled and blushed, Anne challenged the king with her wit, her intelligence, and her refusal to become just another royal mistress. Henry was obsessed. He'd already cast aside his wife, Catherine of Aragon's sister-in-law, to bed her sister Mary. But Anne, she wanted more than a few nights in the king's bed. She wanted his crown. "I would rather lose my life than my virtue," she declared, knowing exactly what those words would do to him. For 6 years, Henry pursued her with over 17 passionate love letters. He promised her everything: titles, jewels, power. But Anne held firm. No marriage, no surrender. Little did she know, her virtue would cost her everything, including her life. "I care not for all your excommunications." Henry's roar echoed through Europe as he defied the Pope himself, all for Anne Boleyn. Catherine of Aragon had been Henry's wife for 24 years, but she'd given him no living male heir. In Henry's mind, God was punishing him for marrying his brother's widow. The solution? Annul his marriage and wed Anne. But Pope Clement VII refused. Catherine's nephew was Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, and he had the Pope under siege in Rome. No annulment, no escape. So Henry did the unthinkable. He broke from Rome entirely, declared himself supreme head of the Church of England, and divorced Catherine himself. A 1,000-year bond with papal authority shattered. All of Christendom watched in horror as England split from the Catholic world. January 25th, 1533. In a secret dawn ceremony, Anne finally became Henry's wife. She was already pregnant, surely with the son Henry desperately needed. But as Anne's belly grew, so did the whispers against her. The king's great whore, they called her. The scandal of England, the crown was within her grasp, but the ground beneath her feet was already cracking. June the 1st, 1530. Anne Boleyn's coronation should have been the greatest day of her life. Instead, London's streets fell eerily silent as her golden carriage passed. No cheers, no celebration, just thousands of hostile eyes watching the usurper queen claim her throne. Anne pressed her hand to her swollen belly, feeling her child kick. Surely the prince who would silence all her critics. But on September 7th, 1530, Anne delivered a daughter, Elizabeth. Henry's disappointment was immediate and devastating. "God will not give me male children," he muttered, already doubting the marriage he'd revolutionized England to achieve. Still, Anne held hope. She was young. There would be other pregnancies, other chances. But each miscarriage that followed drove Henry further into cold fury. The passionate love letters stopped. The private dinners ended. By 1535, Henry's eyes had already wandered to Jane Seymour, a pale, quiet woman who represented everything Anne was not. submissive, obedient, English. Anne could feel her power slipping away like sand through her fingers, but she had no idea. Her enemies were already sharpening their knives. The queen, who had defied a pope, was about to learn that defying a king carried an even deadlier price. She has become so arrogant that she thinks she can do anything. Thomas Cromwell's words sealed Anne's fate, but the real betrayal was yet to come. By early 1536, Anne was desperate. Another miscarriage had left Henry cold with rage, and Jane Seymour's star was rising fast. At court, Anne's temper flared. She argued with Henry publicly, a cardinal sin for any queen. She threatened his advisors, demanded loyalty, and made enemies of powerful men who'd once supported her. But it was her alleged affair with court musician Mark Smeaton that gave Cromwell the weapon he needed. Under torture, Smeaton confessed to adultery with the Queen, though he later recanted. That was all Cromwell needed. Suddenly, Anne wasn't just an adulteress, she was a traitor who'd conspired against the king's life. The charges multiplied. Impossibly, adultery with multiple men, including her own brother, George. Treason. Incest. Witchcraft. April the 30th, 1536. Royal guards arrived at Greenwich Palace. "The Queen is commanded to the Tower," they announced. Anne's face went white. The Tower meant only one thing: death. As her barge drifted down the Thames toward that fortress of terror, Anne must have wondered, was this always Henry's plan? The answer would come swifter than she ever imagined. 19 days, that's all it took for Henry VIII to transform his wife from Queen of England to a condemned woman awaiting execution. May 2nd, 1536, Anne Boleyn entered the Tower of London as a queen. By May 15th, she'd been tried, convicted, and sentenced to death on charges so scandalous that even her enemies whispered they were fabricated. Adultery with 5 men, including her brother. High treason, plotting the king's death. The evidence? Torture-induced confessions and proof that Anne had been in places she couldn't possibly have been. But Henry wasn't interested in evidence. He was interested in freedom. Freedom to marry Jane Seymour. Freedom from the woman who'd stopped being useful. The night before her execution, Anne's courage nearly broke. "I hear the executioner is very good," she told her ladies with dark humor, "and I have a little neck." She measured it with her hands, laughing through tears that betrayed her terror. May 19th, 1536, 8 a.m. Anne knelt on Tower Green before a crowd of nobles. No common axe for Henry's queen. He'd imported a French swordsman for a merciful death. Her final words rang clear. "Good Christian people, I come hither to die according to law. I pray God save the king." Even in death, she protected the man who'd destroyed her. The blade fell. Anne Boleyn, the woman who'd reshaped English history, was gone. But her 3-year-old daughter Elizabeth would one day become England's greatest monarch. Henry's merciful execution had just created a legend. Anne Boleyn's 19-day fall from grace reminds us how quickly power can turn to peril, and how courage can shine brightest in our darkest moments. Her daughter Elizabeth would prove that sometimes a parent's greatest legacy isn't their crown, but their strength. What historical figure do you think showed the most courage when facing impossible odds? Drop your thoughts below. I love hearing from viewers across the UK, US, Canada, and Australia. And if Anne's story moved you, hit subscribe for more untold tales of history's most fascinating figures. These stories deserve to be remembered.